Welcome to another short presentation from Maranatha Church. This one is called Hellish Confusion. More than a few Bible teachers have come out recently with sharings on universal salvation or soul annihilation, arguing that a loving God wouldn't design a place of eternal torment for anyone. These teachings are given in an effort to soften some of the sharp edges in Scripture and perhaps make Christianity more palatable to the PC public. This isn't one of those sharings. There seems to be quite a bit of hellish confusion in Christendom regarding the ultimate end of the unsaved. Hardline traditionalists are sure the lost go to an eternally tormenting hell. Catholics have some folks in hell and others in a way station known as purgatory. Moderates retain a doctrine of hell, but soft shoe around the specifics of what happens there, preferring instead to be vague and talk a lot more about heaven. Universal salvation, the idea that eventually everyone goes to heaven because Christ died for everyone, is gaining popularity in Christendom. This idea does away with the eternalness of hell. Others argue for annihilation of the lost in order to do away with their suffering. What is one to think? Well, a question I ask those asking me about hell is, in what the hell do you mean? Do you mean Sheol or Hades? Do you mean Gehenna? Perhaps you're talking about the outer darkness, or Tartarus, or maybe even the lake of fire. You see, though the King James Version is well salted with the term hell, it is actually a translation of various terms in the original languages. Primary among them are the Hebrew term Sheol and the Greek term Hades. Let's take a glimpse of Sheol first. Whenever you see hell in the Old Testament of the King James Version, it is always a translation of Sheol, but it's not the only translation of Sheol. Sheol is used 66 times, and it's translated in the King James as hell 31 times, grave 31 times, and pit 3 times. One time it doesn't show up in the translation at all. That's Isaiah 7:11. Ask thee a sign of the Lord thy God, ask it either in the depth or in the height above. In the text is the word of Sheol, but that didn't get translated by the translators. Many commentators like to refer to Sheol as simply the grave or gravedom. But the Hebrew has a perfectly good term for the grave, which is kaber, and a study of this word in Scripture will show you that graves are a burial place for people and are quite different than Sheol. Bodies go into graves, whereas souls go into Sheol. Graves can be bought and sold, but you can't buy off Sheol or buy your way out of it. Graves are of a particular size, but Sheol stretches. Graves are localized, but Sheol is never localized. Sepulchres can be above ground or in caves. Under the earth or the lower parts of the earth is how the Bible describes Sheol. The grave is not contrasted with heaven, but Sheol is shown as the opposite of heaven. Let's look at hell in the New Testament. One term translated hell in the New Testament is Hades, and it is used 11 times in the Greek text. It is the Greek equivalent of the Hebrew word Sheol. Hades is translated as hell 10 times and grave 1 time. Next term we're going to look at is Gehenna, and this is used 12 times and is always translated hell. But Gehenna actually has a geographic location that can easily be found in any halfway decent map. I happen to have one right here. Now, if you'll look at the south side of Jerusalem, you will see the Hinnom Valley. Let me zoom in a little bit for you. You see down there at the bottom of the picture, the Hinnom Valley? The Hinnom Valley, or the Valley of the Sons of Hinnom, has a long and sordid history that you can read about in the Old Testament. In Jesus' day, it was the location of the city dump where trash was burned. When he spoke of Gehenna, those listening knew the place he was talking about. This is what it looks like today. The Valley of Hinnom looks lush and green, I assure you. It will not look this way during the millennial reign of Christ on earth. Our next term is the term Tartarus, and it is used once in 2 Peter 2:4, where it is translated, cast them down to hell. It is actually a verb form of the noun Tartarus and means to incarcerate in Tartarus. But what is Tartarus exactly? Tartarus is a term that Peter borrowed from Greek mythology to describe what the Old Testament refers to as the deep, and the New Testament speaks of as the abyss, as translated in the New International Version, or the bottomless pit, as translated in the King James Version. In Greek mythology, it is the prison of the Titans. The Titans were the offspring of Gaia, the earth, and Uranus, heaven. They were earth-born demigods who rebelled against Uranus and were eventually incarcerated in Tartarus. This is the mythologizing of the account of the Nephilim in Genesis 6. The Greeks describe Tartarus as a place as far below Hades as earth is below the heavens. Some other hellish terms that are in Scripture are the bottomless pit. We've talked about that. Also called the deep and the abyss. This is Tartarus. There's the outer darkness, also referred to as the blackness of darkness or the mist of darkness. Peter and Jude talk about chains of darkness. And there's this place known as the lake of fire. Now, the confusion out there is understandable. There are a lot of views that confuse. Materialists like to think of Sheol and Hades simply as the grave and are more comfortable being vague about the afterlife. Reductionists like to take all the various terms as synonymous. And fundamentalists only distinguish the lake of fire from the rest of the terms, but they throw all the unsaved in there indiscriminately. Well, to those who argue that these terms are synonymous, I offer the testimony of Jesus in Matthew. Matthew records Jesus talking about the gates of Hades, also cities being brought down to Hades, and Jesus in Revelation 1:18 says he has the keys to Hades. Matthew also records Jesus speaking about bodies and souls being cast into Gehenna, of people being thrown into the outer darkness, and a place of everlasting fire being prepared for the devil and his angels. This is the same place that the Apostle John refers to as the lake of fire in Revelation 20, verse 10. These are different words for different places. Matthew demonstrates that the different words used aren't a matter of Matthew's personal vocabulary. Different people and things go into different places. They are different in space and time, and in a physical and spiritual sense. And you need to know that the Lord is the creator of them all. Isaiah 45, verses 7 and 8 tell us, I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. Drop down, ye heavens, from above, and let the skies pour down righteousness. Let the earth open, and let them bring forth salvation, and let righteousness spring up together. I, the Lord, have created it. That the Lord created it demonstrates that the devil isn't master of any of it. Far from being his domain, ultimate hell, the lake of fire, becomes the place of the devil's eternal punishment. Why is hell on fire? Well, it is because our God is a consuming fire, and the fire of Sheol is an expression of his anger and jealousy. Deuteronomy 32:22 tells us, For a fire is kindled in my anger, and burns to the lowest parts of Sheol, and consumes the earth with its yield, and sets on fire the foundations of the mountains. Exodus 34:14 we read, For thou shalt worship no other God, for the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God. This is one of the lesser-known redemptive names of Yahweh. Most are aware of the Lord our shepherd, or the Lord our healer, the Lord our banner. This is Yahweh Kanah. You will not find one of these banners in your Christian boutique store. Yahweh Kanah is the Lord is jealous, and he is jealous over his people like a husband is jealous over his wife. Look at Song of Solomon, chapter 8, and verse 6. Jealousy is as severe as Sheol, and its flashes are flashes of fire, the very flame of the Lord. You see, Yahweh's anger and jealousy are what lit the flames of Sheol and keep them burning. Hell isn't just one place. When you're reading an English version of the Bible, hell is a general term applied to several specific places mentioned in Scripture. And we've talked about them. Sheol, Hades, Gehenna, Tartarus, outer darkness, lake of fire. Sheol or Hades is not the grave, which is for bodies. It is a place for departed souls under the earth, which had Abraham's bosom and a place of torment. This place of torment is the present hell for the damned, and will be cast into the lake of fire in the last days. Abraham's bosom is also known as paradise, and it was moved to the intermediate heaven when Christ ascended and was glorified. When he ascended on high, he led captivity captive, as Ephesians tells us. Gehenna is a place of punishment on the earth during the millennial reign of Jesus Christ. It is for the bodies and souls of apostates and for the children of the devil. Tartarus is a prison inside the earth for fallen angels. It's also known as the deep or the abyss. The outer darkness is a place of punishment for the faithless, also known as the blackness of darkness or the mist of darkness. The lake of fire is the final place of punishment for the beast and the false prophet, the devil and his angels, and all those not written in the book of life. But friends, all is not lost. The good news is that Jesus is the only salvation from all hells. John 3:16, 17. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. For God sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. God so loved you that he sent Jesus, that you would not have to find eternity, the unpleasant place and company with the devil who is being punished. Have a blessed day.